My name is Vicky Idoko Pope, and I think most of us know me by now. I am the head of VIPCG, and I want to welcome you to the WASH Academia series. Today's topic is a topic that everybody is anxious about. It is about the institutional arrangement that works for a corporatized water utility. We noticed throughout most of our engagements that there were issues around alignment and clarity around mandates and boundaries and authority and power and levels of autonomy and actual, even the actual framework, the water policy or the WASH policy and the backing and the law that backs it. And so we thought that we would bring this to the floor and have a discussion about it and see how we can resolve some of the issues. We have in our midst almost all the gurus on institutional arrangement. We have from the federal level, we all know Engineer Benson, who is trying to enter the room. We have Dennis, who is our, all areas of WASH. And we have Mark, who has done program management and has also managed a state water agency and has been involved in corporatization so much. So those three people will be our key anchors today. But in the room also, I know that Timei had come in and Babalobi is here. There are so many of us here that, there isn't any issue that we cannot resolve. We are going to open the floor, and what I would like to do is to just start a little bit and give like maybe 5 minutes of my time to explain what I think institutional arrangement is, or what I think it should be. Basically, we know that in the WASH sector, there is a large number of institutions and organizations that are involved in the entire process. And so oftentimes, these institutions have different roles that they must play, they must relate with each other and contribute in a way that we're able to implement programs that are beneficial to the general public. Well, the government often starts out by developing the WASH policy. In there, the government intention is made very clear, the different players that must be involved in making sure that we are able to deliver services. And then, but we know also that the government cannot do anything without a law. So oftentimes, sometimes, a lot of times, there is an existing law, an existing WASH law for most of our state water agencies is called the water law, but it serves the same purpose. And it's the tenets of the law, what is contained in the law and what is contained in the WASH policy that guides what happens in corporatization. Well, what we have seen is that sometimes there's even confusion as to the different roles that the organizations that are involved in the WASH are supposed to play. My research unearthed 4 key roles. And so I try to understand when I look at any water law or look at any water policy, I try to understand the roles that are given organizations from this perspective. There are institutions, and the 4 roles are the enabling institutions. Then there's the service delivery institutions, the facilitating institutions, and the regulating institutions. So all of these groups have a role that they must play in order for us to have success in the watch sector. Clearly, the State Water Agency belongs in the service delivery institutions. The very first one, the enabling institutions, is where the policies are made, where the laws are made, where finances are made available, where we also have the tariff structure also belongs in this purview. And so there in this group is actually the executive government and all the other institutions that help the executive government to deliver a policy. And then, of course, the legislature that has to revise the law or make a new law or basically either revise or make a new law. Then, of course, we have the service delivery institutions whose job it is to actually go out and produce products and deliver the services. They are the ones that we rely on to make sure that people actually are participating or are benefiting from the services that we put out there. And so then down below that are the facilitating institutions like the development agencies, sometimes the federal government. These institutions there help to build the capacity and make resources available for us to be able to deliver our services. Then, of course, finally, the final piece is the regulating agency. The regulatory agency, they are the ones that set the standards, set the goals. They're the ones that manage agreements and contracts. They are the ones that also help to monitor the progress of the implementation and all of that on behalf of the government. We know that we've been trying to do all of this, but the situation we have is a confusion that arises from these four boxes, being able to see that which your organization belongs where and what is the mandate and what are the boundaries, the powers, the relationships that must be maintained in order for you to become effective in what you do. Well, if the policy is clearly designed and the law is in alignment with the policies, all these issues would not arise. But we know in real life, what we experience is oftentimes a state water agency that is left trying to revise the entire wash law, or a state water agency that is given that the law gives a mandate of urban water, but because of the definitions of what is urban and what is semi-urban or small town, and all of that is not too clear. So the state water agency is then providing water not just in the urban areas, but also covering the small towns and sometimes even the rural areas that are under the responsibility of RUWASA. So in order for us to be able to clearly get our organizations to perform where they are placed in the structure, we want to look at the institutional arrangement, because it's from that framework that the organization can be successful. One of the challenges that I have seen is a confusion with what corporatization is. We seem to agree that to corporatize means that we're moving from the state water agency to becoming a corporation. What we don't seem to realize is that the corporation is still an asset of the government. It still belongs to the government. It's still controlled by the government, but is a corporation. People fear corporatization because oftentimes they think that once you corporatize, then you are on the way to privatization, and it's not necessarily so. We also tend to confuse the two So if I am the commissioner in a state, I might think that to corporatize means I can sell the assets of the corporation. There's also areas where if you corporatize, the organization becomes an entity and the government should hand over the entire assets of the water utility to the new corporation. And that rarely ever happens. And then you have the government still hanging on to the assets as if it still belongs to the general pool of the assets of the state, instead of the corporation being the asset of the state. Then, of course, we have also seen where so-called corporations that we have found themselves not being able to control the funds that they have coming in. If you have corporatized, the organization must control its assets, must have its employees, must have access to, or must control the revenue that is coming to the corporation, and it shouldn't be deposited anymore in the state coffers, as it were. So a lot of misunderstanding of what corporatization is and what it looks like in real life, and whether it is political will or just the shenanigans of politicians. Somehow we seem to be able to corporatize by word of mouth or by even the big designs that we do, but we can never bring the corporation to come alive. And so looking at the institutional arrangement to make sure that the law says clearly what the corporation is, what the corporation's powers are, what the authorities are, how the corporation will relate with the government and report to the regulatory agency, and all of that will help a lot, because then we have a legal standing from which we can go to the government and say, you see this paper, it says the corporation can this. So can you let the corporation do that? So in a nutshell, hopefully we can look at all these areas where this affects how the corporation is functioning as a corporatized entity. There's so much more, and since we have everybody in the room, let me not take any more time so we can pass on the baton. I think we'll pass on the baton to Dennis. Should we go on to Mark then? Can we
okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Adedayo Makademi. A wash specialist. And I think Madam Vicky has actually laid it bare. And I will only come from the functionality of the tools, all the issues, all the mechanisms we put in place. Because I have been working within the system to operationalize policies, laws, interrelationship between institutions, governance structure, and how everything plays out to result to a performance in the sector. And unfortunately, we have a long way to go in getting results, even when these things are put into place. So I come from that people interest point of view, you know, and you can't run away from interest. It's not possible to run away from interest. It's an analysis I've been trying to do for some time. We're looking at the theory of change, but we should also look at the theory of interest. And I think that is what laws, responsibilities, mandates, and all, and every other issue you built into these things addresses. What is the interest of the key principal person, who probably in most cases is the governor representing the government? What is the interest of other stakeholders, state actors, non-state actors, and how do we ensure that we build in a system where we can take care of people's interest and yet still protect the collective interest. Otherwise, when we look at these composite, these standard policies and laws that we push forward, it doesn't really compel. It doesn't really compel these issues. For example, we issue of incentives, an issue of penalty. How do we build incentive into this system? How do we incentivize people across these structures in institutions? How do you incentivize the board? How do you incentivize the management? How do you incentivize the staff? How do you incentivize people in the ministry, supervisors, and all that? Because these are the issues we keep confronting on a regular basis, and at the end of the day, we just end up not getting results. So for me, as we're looking at how do we improve our legislations, our policies, and I don't think there's anything wrong with them, really. What I think is, how do we use this? How do you design a system where everybody can have positive interest, and at the end of the day, we can get collective interest? And how do you protect the system? How do you protect the collective interests? For example, how do you make sure that when budget is released, the collective interest of getting water to people's homes is protected from every other interest? How do you ensure that sanitation services get to the people? How do we protect it when intervention funds are coming, when government is releasing its budget? Because the ultimate goal is that people should have water in their homes, people should have access to sanitation services. But in between, when projects are planned, when resources are deployed, and when projects are implemented, so many interests come to play that at the end of the day, the ultimate expectation of water supply, you don't get it. So for me, that is key to me, and that's what I think. I believe that sector experts should honestly engage so that we can have results to show for all our efforts. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. Do we have people with, okay, I see hands up. Iberik, do you see Bashir's hand up? Can you help me out?
Yes. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody.
Uh-huh.
Okay, my observation with this is the presenter, the way you present it is good, and the second one that emphasized on the policy. Actually, the state governors, the policy of the states on water, they are there, and they are very good policy. But our major problem is, how can we get these politicians or these governors to bless this kind of laws that they will give water independent issue? Maybe the company there will help us come out with a very good modality, good laws, good thing that when we approach our governors or big people will be able to get blessed on this. That's one of our major problem. How can we get these people to bless these our policies? That's all.
Thank you so much. Do we have someone that has comments or ideas? We are all talking about the problem with the politicians not adhering to the rules, right?
Okay, there are persons whose hands are up. You could give them opportunity to ask. I'm seeing London here. London.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is Dennis, the thing. Okay, Mary, come on.
Okay, Mr. London, there's someone I'm
Yeah,
saying.
can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Eugene Pam.
Okay.
I've listened carefully with what is being said by the audience, the spectator. So what I'm trying to impute into this is that we have a problem, and a major problem, with implementation of policies regarding the water sector. and has to do primarily with the political will of government. Unfortunately, we have a structure in Nigeria where we have 36 independent states plus the Federal Capital Territory, and these have independent policy interests. Suffice it to mention here that the issue of water, sanitation, and indeed other welfare services like roads, schools, hospitals, have all been issues of political campaigns over the years. And by next year, 2022, we're going to come into another period of campaign. And I bet you that governors and politicians are now going to form supply of water will be either the first or the third or top three issues that are going to be drumming on the podiums to the different people, communities, that is what they're going to provide for the communities. The issue now is, when will there be a change from, oh, we are going to supply you water, we're going to bring you roads? When are we, the stakeholders in the water and sanitation sector, going to be able to convince politicians and say, hang on, for over 20 years, you've been talking about, oh, we're going to supply you water. Why can't we not change their mindset from, oh, we're going to supply water, or to, we're going to make it possible for investors to come in or for companies to be engaged to make sure that water is supplied. In other words, we're talking about corporatization. We're talking about removing water from government to the people. Let the people be responsible for the provision and let the government be the whistleblower. That is my taking. It is only when we are able to convince government that, oh, we don't want to hear again you guys talking about, oh, we're going to provide you water, we're going to do this, to, look, we are going to make things easier for water to be supplied to you. Making this easier could include PPP or different sector, different, because the federal government through the Ministry of Water Resources has tried through the urban water sector programs, and then the international development partners have equally tried all these years. We've had urban water sector 1, sector 2, sector 3. Have these programs succeeded? They are likely having, to a large extent, the implementation process is slow. But so long as government is the umpire in this game, implementation will obviously be having a lot of headaches. So can we change, we the stakeholders now, can we now come together and say, hang on, how can we change the mindset of politicians? We cannot be blaming governors coming out with the governors. No, we have a role to play in this. How and which is the forum which we can now tell politicians, look guys, change your mindset. Don't be telling people you are going to provide water. Let it be something like, oh, progress has been made. We are going to ensure that water is being made available through this means, through that means, so that with the water laws in place in the different states, we will be able to key in and then let it be a stream, not a policy where Governor A comes in, Governor B comes the next time and completely flushes out what Governor A has done. There has to be consistency. And we, the stakeholders, it's my own view now, my opinion, that we have a role to play in trying to tailor-make the mindset of politicians into accepting that, look, the issue of water supply is huge. There's a colossal amount of money involved. Governor A can start a program. Please let the next governor or the next government continue from where the other one stops. That's my take. Thank you.
Yes, sir. As we know, I don't know if you noticed, but Engineer Benson is finally in the room. Welcome, sir. He's in as an iPhone, but Engineer Benson is here, and we really thank you for coming. We are going to.
Thank you, Madam.
Aha, we hear you now. I see you. You are iPhone. Okay, so so far we've had we have Engineer Benson here because I know that one of your pet peeves is the commitment of the government to follow through and being able to take charge of the reforms, and the government basically not following its own policy, the WASH policy that they developed, and the law, the backing law that the legal backing that they have the law from actually do implementation, like the last speaker said. So I am going to cede the floor to Engineer Benson so that he can give us his own thoughts. Then after that, we'll go to Dennis. Okay, Dennis, do you want to come in while we are trying to get Engineer Benson situated?
Yeah, thank you so much, actually. First, I must congratulate you for this great effort of trying to see what can be done. To some extent, I'm tempted to say that actually we've already achieved what we needed to do. But I believe we haven't. And here's why. So as somebody said, I think it was Bashir, and then even Eugene Pam, basically, I think all the sectors are in agreement that where the problem lies is on implementation. We've got the right policies in quite a number of states. I personally have been involved in quite a number of states, not only on EWASH, but even before we had the 3 states, Bauchi, Ebonyi, and Rivers. I mean, look at Rivers, for example. You have a corporation established and enacted by law. Port Harcourt Water Corporation. You come to Bauchi State Water Corporation, and then Ekiti Water Corporation. So we've got all these institutions in name. And by the way, the introduction that you gave was right on point in terms of the issues of roles, responsibilities, who is an enabler, enabling environment, facilitation, service provision, and regulation. I believe that we have all these things in place. The big question is the one I think asked by Eugene to say, when are we going to see change? The federal government, I'm sure Engineer Benson might say more about this. The federal government has been pushing, and mind you, just to mention to you, one time because we were working in Ebonyi, and then later on we were advised that the corporation was actually dissolved, and then Urban Water Services was put back to the ministry. And I remember meeting the federal minister of water resources and telling him that this is the situation. And he said, no, our hands are tied because as federal government, we cannot force a state government to say, you must implement this. The only way is to use a carrot and stick. So which means that, I mean, the federal government has tried, the development partners have also done their best. But I think as Eugene mentioned, we need to put our heads together and continue advocating with our state government leadership, the governors themselves and the commissioners and what have you, but also the people working in the water boards. This is why. Here's why I'm saying this. The water boards have been used for the last 30, 40, 50 years that you get your salary whether you work or not. I think the day when the government is going to say, okay, guys, here's an amount of money, you are on your own, and we will make sure that your tariff, you have a regulator that's going to help you on this, and so on. Everybody's going to work up. Obviously, there might be strikes, demonstrations, and what have you, but I think it being implemented in a stepwise approach, I believe that we can certainly get there. So I think we need to, and if it's possible, I think it would be great maybe to start with 2-3 states that are promising, and then we see how everything can move on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are going to now Oga is in the room. Engineer Benson is finally in the room. I saw his big cap just now. So, Engineer Benson, can you come in now? You heard all the talk we've been given. So we're expecting you to make your comments about how you can help or how we can help to push, especially the government, the state governments, to adhere to their own and implement their own law, their own water law in favor of the reforms. Okay. Have we
Thank you very much, Vicky. Apology that I have been battling to connect for the past 30 minutes now because I've just arrived at Akure from Abuja. But finally, I was able to make it. Now, you know, it has been a very topical issue in Nigeria. That is the issue of corporatization of the water utilities in the country. As far back as year 2000, I'm happy that Dennis Mwanza is here. We had what we call Governors Forum, you know, towards corporatization of the water utility in Nigeria. We were making progress at that time because we were able to educate a few governors as to why we need to corporatize, you know, the water utility in Nigeria. But unfortunately, there was regime change, and then we lost that momentum. Just like some of us have mentioned on the platform, I think the real issue has to do with the politicians. You will see that there is very, very high turnover even of the chief executives of the water utilities in Nigeria. And that is a major drawback to the issue of progress that we are supposed to have in the, you know, in the sector. You know, the issue of corporatization has to do largely with carrying out the necessary reform in terms of unbundling, you know, the sector responsibilities. And I'm sure maybe Dennis Mwanza will have talked about the sector, you know, functions in terms of the policy, in terms of service provision, regulation, and then, of course, funding. In most cases, in most of the states of the Federation, they are all bundled together. You discover that it's the ministry that is in charge. You know, that recently, I know there's a state government that does not even have a water utility. They used to have before, but they have scrapped it, and now the federal function is being taken over by their ministry.
Oh, wow. So
why can that be corporatized? You know, and where they have been corporatized, you know, the laws are very old, such that they cannot support what they are supposed to be doing now. And then where there have been new laws, there has been no, you know, implementation of those laws and policies that they are put in place. We talk of a state like, for example, Lagos, Rivers, Bauchi, Kaduna, you know, where all these laws are in place. Except for Kaduna now, because of the nature of the governor that is there. And this is where we know that it is the head of that government that matters as far as governance of utilities are concerned. So, and then, of course, I believe that there's a lot to be done because without adequate advocacy, you know, to the politicians to really understand the nature and then the management of water resources in the country, it will be difficult, you know, for the politicians to assimilate, to understand, and to implement the necessary reform that are required, you know, to move the sector forward. So, number one, we must have right pegs in round holes. The round pegs must be in round holes in terms of even people that are management water utilities. If the wrong people that do not even understand the sector of managing, then they will find it difficult to convince the politicians as to the necessary reform that will move the sector forward. And I've seen this one in many, many of the states. You know, many years ago, you know, in a particular state, they have submitted, you know, a memo to governor for approval. And the governor turned them down to the point that I was even chasing them away from coming to the service. When I requested to see a copy of that memo that was submitted to governor, I saw that it's not convincing enough. You know, why? Because the people that prepare the memo do not even have adequate knowledge of what they are supposed to include in the memo that is submitted to the government. And what I did was to say, okay, please, let us help you rejig it. We rejig the memo. And I said, look, talk to the commissioner. We talked to the commissioner, submit to the governor. And the governor saw a convincing reason why he has to support the tariff increase that they were looking for at that time. And he approved it. So those managing the water utilities must have adequate expertise to be able to convince, the politicians, because they are waiting to become, because they want to see what is the need for them, what goal can they score, by reforming the utility, by putting in place what is supposed to be done. And when they don't see that happening, they will just jettison it. They will keep it aside, or at today, they will just stand, on the fence and then be watching where you go. So we have roles to play as experts, and then the politicians are the one that will make the decision at the end of the day. But we have to help them to make the decision, why it must be like that. They are waiting to be convinced, but they cannot be convinced unless they know that they have points. What is the point that they have to make? Number one, you discover that by granting autonomy to the state, to the water utility, it will reduce their dependence on the state fund.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to also carry them along. In Ondo State, apparently in Ondo State, sometimes back, a commissioner, when we did a program with her, I just said, look, I want to call this one Aketi water, Kamumi Aketi. It's like he brought governor to it. The governor saw it, and he saw that it's a means of advocacy for his own government. He bought into it. And that became a slogan, sort of. And that helped to change the narrative, of that ministry and the water utility. And now they are moving on as far as utility reform is concerned. Now they have AFG fund, they have African Development Bank fund that is coming to help them to turn around because they have the support of the government. So when we are doing things in the utilities that the governor cannot see himself in it, that the politician does not see a goal in it, they find it difficult to support. So this is where the issue mainly lies. We engineers, we just like to do technical things. We forget about the politics that is behind it. There's need for us to begin to play politics for water. If you are a water utility manager, you have to note that you are not just a technician there, you are also a politician. And you have to play the politics the way it's supposed to be. Dancing to the source of government, bringing the government down to your leg, making the water sector very, very interesting to the government. When I was the director of water supply, one thing I did, I brought my minister into it. In fact, I make him to be the champion of most of the things that we are doing. Not that I wanted to claim credit for it, but I labored most of the things after him. I ensure that at least he is at the same level with me. He understands what I'm doing and why I'm doing that. So these are the areas where I think corporatization, they can create the enabling environment that will enable corporatization to depend. I've had a number of discussions with many governors, and many of them are so confused about water. I must let you know that. Mm. Many of them are so confused. A governor told me, I don't know what to do with that sector. Mm. I don't know what to do. There is a problem on me. Please help me. And he has experts, he has managers that are there with him who cannot speak the language that he understands. Mm. So we must learn to speak the language of politicians as far as water is concerned so that they can understand the issue of water and they can support the corporatization that we are aiming at. Because without that, we cannot move forward in this country. We have carried out reforms since 2004. Mm. But there's no state today that we can say has been fully reformed and can stand on its own. Why? Because the governance will come and truncate what you are doing. When the managers there cannot speak their language, or are not given opportunity to speak their language. Like I mentioned to some of my friends who are managers, I say, look, if we can't get the governor, get his wife. If we can't get his wife, get his friend that can help you to speak to him. Because it'll be difficult for you to get the governor. But if you get his friend, whose house you can go and be patronizing that person, be a friend to that person, who will now be drawn into the ears of the governor because he knows when they are drinking together. I can talk to him. He knows when they go to their girlfriends' houses, they can talk about what, things like that. We have to go that way to be able to drum these things to the head of the governors, because they are the major factor that can, reform is a top-bottom thing, whether we like it or not. It's a top-bottom thing. We made progress in Rivers State because Amechi was the governor at that time. And Amechi was quite interested because of the lady that was the commissioner at that time.
Yeah.
So she knew how to drum into the ears of Amechi because they knew where they came from, where they can meet and where things can happen. And we were making good progress. The sector was unbundled, laws were passed, policies were set in place, and things were moving, and then they were all, powered with the right people. But unfortunately, when there was a regime change, the whole thing came down. The whole thing came down. So you can see where I said we need to get a politician. And when the thing came down, we quickly rushed in to let the commissioner knows he has a lot of work to do. But the commissioner, being a politician, he did not even listen. And that is where many things went wrong as far as Rivers is concerned. So what am I saying? We have to ensure that we get the listening ear of the governors as far as reform is concerned, that we ensure corporatization of the water utilities in Nigeria. Without the support of the governors, we're just wasting our time. We must do all that is necessary to enlist their support, to get their listening ear, to support what we are doing. Because many of them will go out there to promise the citizens that we're going to give you free water, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And by the time they come in and they see that there's a lot of cost that's involved in it, they just keep quiet. And then they will just, at most, sit on the fence and then be watching what is happening. And then be blaming the general manager, be blaming the commissioner, be blaming everybody for the failure that they are experiencing.
Okay.
Apart from even convincing the government, we must convince the political parties. At the time they are preparing their slogans and things like that, they must know the issue of water. They must be convinced on what to do on the issue of water and the need for us to have appropriate utility that will be well corporatized to ensure that they are independent, they are supported, and they will be able to deliver services to the people. Otherwise, the billions of dollars we are just borrowing here and there, we are wasting. We are wasting, I must say that. I have been involved in it. We have spent many billions of dollars. Not that the technical things are not done, but the real political support that will enable them to turn around the situation by generating appropriate revenue to be able to supply water to the people are not there. So I want to submit that the thing starts and ends with the politicians, but we, the technocrats, must ensure that we support them, we give them the right information, we use all sorts of means to convince them to be able to enable us to corporatize appropriately and then to do what is needed in the water sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Benson. We have, the main thing that I heard is it starts from the top, that these reforms that we're chasing is going to start from the top. So somehow we have to find a way to be able to rope in the governor to, and even by so doing, also including his political party to buy into the corporatization efforts and to continue to push forward. I think that this is a very good idea. That kind of like, I saw that in, I'm not going to talk about which state, but I saw that in a state where all the designs were done. Sorry, it was somebody in the room here that turned on their computer speakerphone. I apologize. Anyway, so this state had all the drawings and was just supposed to move into implementation. And the government even committed to giving the seed money for the transition period. But as soon as we got the commissioner, who is also a politician, involved, that was when everything just started to not work. And the struggle continues, as they say. So really, what I heard from Engineer Benson was, instead of trusting in the commissioner and all the people below, if we had gone above that and gone really to the very top, we might have gotten more action and been able to stay on track. So thank you so very much, sir. There were several people that had their hands up, and have the hands gone down now? If you had your hand up, please, can you do it again? And let's hear your comments. There's a lot of comments in the chat room already, but we're going to try and harvest that and bring it in.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm Engineer Musa Abubasi. I'm from Taraba State, the MD of Tawasco. And I am very pleased with this discussion that is ongoing that has to do with institutionalizing the institutional arrangement for effective corporatization of state water agency. If there is any state that has benefited from the ongoing reform, I think Taraba will be listed as one. And it has to do, just like the other speakers have mentioned, a lot of things that have come into play. The various speakers have made valid statements on the issues that surround the workability of state water agencies. And I think going beyond, we need to look at how we generally perceive water. Is it something that we keep saying without really meaning it? Because if we really consider water to be a critical thing in the life of humans, then we should give it the priority it deserves. But here we are, in most of the state utilities, we have issues that will start from the recruitment process, because we talked about the main person or the people in charge of running utilities. The recruitment process is always skewed. And if the politicians who form governments are responsible for appointing who becomes the managing director or the general manager of a state utility company, why wouldn't he allow the best to be employed or engaged? So the recruitment process is one aspect that we have to look into with all the seriousness it deserves. If you put a non-entity or somebody that is not experienced and is not knowledgeable in that field, he will definitely go in there and will not give you the best. So the recruitment process, we have to find a way of standardizing it. And then going further, I think water should be taken as critical as the security of a nation or integrity of a nation. And if we leave it in the pockets or in clusters of state governments, 36 states with 36 wash policies, with 36 water laws, and all the things that are involved, we are desegregating issues. I have been privileged to visit some countries, even here in Africa, where water is treated as a national issue. Is given the same priority as is given the army or the security of that nation. And so laws are formulated right from the national and it cascades down to the local government level. So we may need to look at our constitution with a view of reviewing it to give water the rightful place in the constitution, such that we don't leave it in the pockets of emperors that are within these 36 states that will decide what to fund and what not to fund. One of the fears is the quick succession, even in government at the state level. Be it as it may that we have achieved a lot of reform in Taraba State. Our fear now is who comes in next. And is still going to continue in this trajectory that we are already on, Otherwise, the whole effort that has been put in place will be jeopardized. Now, if recruitments of these chief executives are not performance-based, then we are yet to start. And you find that in most cases, people put personal interest before the public interest. These are issues that we need to address. And I think if we give water the rightful position, let's look at it from the national perspective, that let it be handled there at the national level, and all policies, laws are cascaded down such that the Constitution provides that nobody can change those things except it passes through the national legislation. I think that is one way that we can go. Otherwise, people say soldier come, soldier go, barrack remains the same. Governments will come, governments will go, and then utilities will be messed up, as the case may be. It all depends on the thinking of the political office holder. That is my view for now. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Vicky, are you there?
Hello, Vicky, are you there?
Okay, so I think you should go. Just go ahead, sir.
Just go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Let me first of all thank Siam for his contribution. Because he spoke eloquently as to how to centralize the issue of water supply in Nigeria. And I think that's going to be a Herculean task. You will recall that we have the Water Resources Bill, which was prepared by the Federal Ministry of Water Resources, approved by the Ministry of Justice, and then the Federal Executive Council approved it. And for many months now, the National Assembly. Why? Because many people feel agitated that the issue of water supply is being centralized, over-centralized in Nigeria. And that bill does not have that provision, does not have provision for water supply centralization. We're just talking about water resources issues. I mean, in regards to waters that pass through, that flow from state to state, you know, and it has received so much criticism in the country. So what will happen if we now start talking about the issue of water supply to be centralized? That can never fly in the country. So I don't think it will be easy to achieve that. But, you know, that Water Resources Bill has made provision for frameworks of policy framework, legal framework that can be adapted by the state at the state level. And I think with that, states are free, you know, at liberty to adapt what the federal government will have prescribed in that Water Resources Bill as appropriate for water supply services in the country. And then I think that's the much that can be done. But the real advocacy, like you have said, just like you have done, I know in Taraba, a lot has been done and a lot is being achieved. And the question that you rightly said, how do we sustain the ongoing reform in Taraba State? Now, the first thing would be, first, we have to put our law. Our law is already there. And then we put the right people there. The right people also must be in charge of water services in Taraba State. And like I said, when the right people are there and they have the right language that they can use to convince politicians, you see, like I said, we should not just stop at the executive that we are convincing the governor. We should also make our inroad to the political parties, so that the political party, the politicians are from the party level, understand the issue of water. Let me tell you, when the current administration, federal government administration was coming on board, I think we had opportunity to make some technical input to their policy document. Somehow, I think some people contacted me from outside, and then by the time we uncovered the issue of water, they said, no, they need an expert that will man that water resources ministry to be created. And that made them to bring our minister to us. And that started from the party level. That because they were going ministry to ministry, what are the issues, what are the things to be addressed and things like that. And then somehow somebody who knows a few of us just put us together. Please come and advise us. So secretly, we wrote policy papers that we gave to them. And they know, oh, this issue requires a technical person, an expert that will help us to man this place. So by the time they gave it to the president said, I already have one man who can work there. So we have to do the similar thing. We don't have to fold our arms and wait on the politicians we decide. They don't know much. They don't know much. And by the time they uncover, their cabinet, we just bring one lawyer to come or one historian to come and hide water because they don't understand the issue of water. Mm. So we need to take it beyond, the comforts of even the executive and start how we can, behind the closed door, be educating those that are in the politics, those that are in their party secretariats, so they understand. So by the time they are talking about it at the party level, they say, oh, that ministry, no, that agency, no, they need, competent hands to be able to deliver services to us. So these are issues that we need to do. And then follow up to that, we need to also engage the civil societies. We are not engaging with them enough. The civil society organizations are so powerful. They can have a powerful voice to that can put pressure on governments as to what needs to be done in any sector. So we need to engage them the more. I can cite an example of Cross River State sometimes back when we were to increase the tariff. We were agitating for tariff increase. Of course, we had to engage with the civil society organizations, and they conducted their own survey. And they saw that people were ready to pay if the services are there. So they became the advocate to government. And they said, look, we have conducted our survey. People are ready to pay. Just ensure that the services will be there. And the governor had no choice but to allow the increase to be there. So I believe that's another point that we need to take away from here. We need to involve the politicians, get across to them as much as possible. Use every means possible to romance them, to understand, the issue of water. Then we need to look at the independent body like the civil society organizations, who also will understand the issue of, appropriate reform, for the sector, so that they will be the one that will be lobbying and be telling government, no, you need this one in government, you need this one, you need that. And they will see them as independent anyway, because they are not civil servants. And that will put a little pressure on government. So these are some of the things that I think I can still contribute. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, Dennis, you got really quiet. We're waiting on Dennis to bring in, or Mark, do you want to go again? Engineer Ogbonna, we haven't heard you. Are you here?
Yes, ma'am, here.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Engineer Ogbonna, do you have something to contribute before Mark starts?
No, if I should have, it's still based on what every other person has said. The whole thing is we can speak from now till tomorrow. If we are not able to get our politicians to buy in, those are the government at leadership level, the governor especially, who in most cases has the final say when it comes to the state agency, will still have this talk over and over again. So there has to be a way, by way of policy, as to making sure the right persons are those who also have passion for the sector are the ones who are in charge of these agencies. That's the only way we can make headway. If not, we'll still be here talking from now till next year.
Well, one of the things that, one of the issues that I wanted to actually raise is, when we are talking about the reforms, they seem to be driven by either the donor agencies or by us, by the WASH professionals, or, you know, a combination of both. And one of the engineers, one of the guys from Kano, actually raised the issue that the one way we can get this in moving in the direction that we want it to go is to make truly make the state executive and the politicians be the ones leading the change. And it kind of like agrees with everything Engineer Benson just said. If we begin to leverage on, you know, educate the governor enough that he's intelligent, he becomes an intelligent leader in the water sector, we can get more out of him than we are getting now. Most of our people or most of our state executives don't understand what is at stake. And a lot of them see the reforms, especially once you start talking about corporatization, they're hearing privatization. And the situation with NEPA immediately comes into mind. And it immediately becomes a struggle for who's going to control this process, especially since the money, much of the money for the reforms is coming from the development agencies, and the states are only coming up with the counterpart funding. And if it is a grant, like the interventions that are done by USAID and UNICEF and the like, you see that the state agencies start foot dragging, and the executives themselves don't even pay any attention because it's like something that they're getting for free. I think my contribution in this realm really is to get the executive to see this not just as delivering a social service, but that this is a money-making adventure, or the money-making initiative for the state. Everybody's desperate to make more money for their states, and we know that having a water corporation that's able to rake in money can help the state. So maybe that's an angle that will be an easy sell to the state, to the politicians. Angle.
Hello, ma.
Yes.
One more thing, I think as a way of also helping out to those states who in most cases don't have the buy-in of the executive, is also possible most times they are not abreast with what is happening. So on the side of the donor agencies, like the World Bank, the African Development Bank, JICA, what have you, if they can go beyond just releasing these funds, they should, on their own as well, they should make out time to meet this state executive, even if it's quarterly or once in a year, where you also itemize these things, because I'm sure them, they can see the executive faster than most of the heads of those parastatals can do. And it will go a long way, and it's going to add value to whatever we are trying to do as well.
And technically, it's not an either-or situation. I remembered when we were working on the Northeast, the Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiatives. That was a whole lot of money sitting down, that the entire approach to the Northeast was very chaotic. And we came up with the idea that the donor agencies and the government have to come together with the committee that the government had set up, and so that they could come up with a plan together, something that both sides were working on as one, not one side being the technical experts, and then you are trying to educate the other side. And when finally they started to talk to each other directly, it came out to a national plan, or a concerted plan that everybody could buy into, depending on which area of intervention they were focused on. And so and this is going back to what Engineer Benson said earlier. And so the Buhari plan for the Northeast was birthed, and it's from that plan that everybody keeps buying into and implementing pieces of it up till today. And what I learned from that was also that it's helpful to have one governor that is knowledgeable about whatever the intervention is. Then he can speak to the other governors as to what it is that is needed and how they can play in the field and move the whole thing forward. The other learning that I got from that intervention also was that the civil servants, my personal approach to things is that don't ask the civil servants to be the ones to move the reforms, but I think that the heads of state water agencies, if they would work together as a group, that they can become a pressure point for moving the reforms forward as well. So I am thinking that this is one way that we can also go. I think somebody has their hands up. I don't know who has their hands up and who's going to speak.
Hello, ma.
Yes, sir.
This is Engineer Salam from Ogun State.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for this effort you have put up in the interest of the water sector of Nigeria. Well, I just want to contribute along certain lines. Somebody once mentioned the consideration for the interest of these politicians. I think which has also been partly mentioned or discussed by some of the discussants, like in the case of Undo, where we have Aketi water, that's one of the interests. But where I just want us to focus on, because, we have at most at the end of every 8 years, we have a change of government, which may or may not be the same political party. And whatever the achievement that have been made, we now have it, tumbled. But one particular thing that concerns us that also we as professionals in this sector must consider is how do we utilize this development partners funding, from the packaging aspect of it. Because one of the fact is that most state governments, they find it difficult to fund water, because now looking at the huge investment that will be involved, it's a sort of a discouragement to go again, into having loans. But the loans or the credits that we have had, to what extent have you utilized it from packaging? We as professionals, how do we ensure that larger percentage of this funding, does not go into aspects that doesn't support operation? Don't we now devote much of this funding into capacity building, into consultancy that will contribute to capital flight? So that at the end of the day, what we have left, for the assets, for the operation, it's not to write home about. And since we are the ones that are going to make use of this fund, it's a loan, it's a credit, it's not free. You must have a say and a way as to the agreement that we sign concerning this credit. Some development partners, they do not support that you use some of this credit, for maintenance. Whereas if it has been inbuilt, in this credit agreement, that maybe if you do the capital aspect of it, the next 3 years, we have some funding assigned for chemical, for other, operational costs that will keep these things sustained, going on. It becomes very easy for any incoming governor or government, to easily have a relief, so that by the time they come, they will not say, despite all this huge fund that you have spent on water supply, you are now coming to us again to ask for chemical fund, to have for diesel fund, to have for electricity. This will have a sort of relief. By the time they now stabilize for the first 2-3 years of their government, we not go to them with problems, and they not see us as problem organizations. Yes. Because there is a lot of things that are demanding from government, and these resources are very scarce. These are aspects I want us to look into. Like somebody said, that we should put public interest above personal interest, so that jointly we can now survey this sector. If you look at the politicians, some of them, they have this business idea. You are giving you this, how much are you bringing in return? Now do you sustain? And then rather than now coming to say, please give us warning, give us this, maybe you can convince. And that's the idea of corporatization. That, okay, give us this, we be on our own, we will come to you to be asking for money. That is, sell with most governors. So with this, I just want to rest my case and make it my own contribution to this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Please, can I come in?
A quick contribution.
Good afternoon, please.
Vicky, yes. A quick contribution before we leave Engineer Abdusalam. Engineer Abdusalam, thank you for your contribution, especially in regards to the development partners funding of the sector. You will see that over the years, we have been moving from one status to another. We started from water rehabilitation that were highly centralized, and then money was managed at the federal level. And then we move a little bit to decentralized format in which we have the reform. And then now we have prepared another project at the federal level before I retired, which is SWAs, Sustainable Urban and Rural Water Supply Program. And the purpose of that is to have what we call a project for results. And it's quite different from all that have been prepared in the past. The project for results will only be funding results when achieved. Apart from the initial advance that we have been given, it is intended to ensure that the governor is at the center of that development effort. And this program, by the time it's implemented, will ensure that the governors know what is going on day by day, and they carry out what they are supposed to do, because it is expected to support the National Wash Action Plan, which was launched by the president in 2018 November. And the purpose of that Wash Action Plan is to ensure that there's appropriate governance, there's improved service delivery, there's improved sanitation, there's improved funding, and then there's improved monitoring and effective performance of the water utilities. So this program, which is the program for results, or project for results, which is being funded by the World Bank, and I think it's still in process of about $700 million. By the time we begin to implement that, you will see that the governors of those states will have a different perspective and different view about the program, because they will have to physically ensure that the results are there before the World Bank will reimburse them. It is not financing the inputs like we used to do before, or financing outputs, but now is to be sure that the people are getting the results, which have been verified independently by independent verifier. That is another response that the federal government has brought up to the issue that you have raised. That is why I said, let me quickly chip in this point, before you go. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Please, can I?
Yeah, good afternoon, please. I want to make a contribution.
Yes, sir.
My name is Julius, and I sincerely appreciate the provision of this platform, as much as it's aimed at galvanizing input from all the various stakeholders, be it CSOs and members of the government institutions on water and water experts. I'm so delighted to participate, despite the fact that I'm not in the office. I'm actually on the site, but because of my interest in the sector, that's why I'm taking the time off from to engage with it. Now, I appreciate the input that has been made by all the speakers. In fact, everything that has been made on this platform today speaks to the issues and they are appropriate. However, I know that we are not living in the US. We are not living in Europe. We are not living in other developed worlds. We are still in Africa and particularly Nigeria. Here in Nigeria, making laws is never a challenge. In fact, we are known to be having the best laws when it comes to lawmaking. But our greatest challenge has always been implementation of those laws. The corporatization of the water sector had taken off. I have worked in Niger as one of the CSOs under the EWASH, you said EWASH project. And we have seen the processes that this had taken in order to come to where it is today. Despite the policy frameworks that have been signed into law, despite the bills, everything, yet sitting at the driver's seat as an appointee of government over a corporation becomes another great challenge. Now, yes, maybe because at this onset, the existing structure needed to have a set time frame to evolve, and as such, they need to have carried along those already on ground. But when you look at it critically, the things that we want to avoid, the things that we want to really address, we end up not having them addressed because all the men and personnel who have been on board are all government appointees who have retained positions, and trying to evolve this change becomes difficult because they still have the mindset, and above having a mindset, rather, the fact that they are appointees makes it difficult. I'll bring to light what I mean clearly by an example. Though I didn't work in Imo, but I want to bring to bear a situation in Imo. Now, Imo water scheme have been part of the USAID funded water projects. Now, as we speak, the efforts so far inputted into this project would, if not completely be eroded, to a great extent, will be maybe about 70% off. Why am I saying so? Now, there is this water channelization, flood water channelization within the Owerri municipal, a place around the Chukwumangoha street. Now, once it rains, the whole of that area, World Bank estates and all of that are flooded. Now, the previous administration, that's the administration of Senator Okrocha, decided to channel the floods to the Otamiri River. And they brought in a construction company that is not a water engineering company. And they didn't get the best of advice. Why? Because at the end of the day, they had channeled this flood to the suction point where the water scheme sucks water from the Otamiri River before processing. Now, this whole flood comes just at that suction point. Now, you look at the cost of the chemicals required to treat this water before now, how much more with the heavy impurity being conveyed from the flood. Now, what am I driving at? All I'm trying to say is that so long as government appoint heads of corporations of water schemes, it is not likely that we will be able to attain the youthful outcomes that we know even the development partners have so envisaged. Because let all the CSO man pressure, go do your advocacy. The man will keep telling you, look, I have so many years ahead of me. I have children and family to care for. If you push me and I do this, I do that, when they remove me, would you feed me? That becomes a challenge. So I think beyond the policy formation, beyond the reforms that have actually been initiated, which are good, I think more has to do with the development partners who are funding these projects. And so I'm happy with the last speaker, what he has said about the new sustainable water scheme approach. Let's see how it will work when eventually it comes to play. But I think the responsibility of the funding agencies, the development partners, should not just rest at making available these funds, but go ahead to ensure that they don't just release these funds. They should also have an in-house mechanism supporting a strong independent assessor, as it were, to ensure that by each phase of work, that both in terms of personnel management and engagement of consultants and all of that, that the governor for the state actually knows that it is not as in the past, business as usual. Appointing family, friends, or people who do not have the basics or experience and knowledge in the water sector to manage water facilities should be done away with. This is just my little input. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think that Timothy Akoso, we haven't heard you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Vicky. Thank you very much for putting this platform together. It's quite interesting and very educative. I've listened keenly to all the contributions that have been made by everybody. And one thing that keeps popping up is the word "we" in addressing this huge problem of water, urban water supply. So the question I want to ask now is "we," because we need some kind of united front to be able to address these issues. I had put in the chat box a comment. My Oga engineer Benson had very brilliantly addressed the issue of civil society involvement in Nigerian Water Supply Association, made up of professionals in all the urban water utilities in Nigeria and others outside urban water supply. Now the association doesn't seem to be having the kind of bite it should. I think that could have formed one of the fronts to be used for advocacy, for education, both at the federal and state level. As it is right now, the association is mostly like dormant. So I think that this problem, as huge as it is something that requires a multifaceted approach. I don't think there's just one single approach that will be adopted to be able to take care of these problems. So I am thinking that if there is a way of strengthening that association and giving it the necessary teeth, I think it will also help in answering this question of "we" that I said I was not understanding, because we actually we need united fronts to be able to address these issues. Individuals can do, but I think united fronts will do better. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Timothy. We've had Boade's hand up for a long time. Can you speak? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. I think so far, the policies and developments have gone on well, but we are not getting to where we want to be. So I'm having a different angle to the thinking of our development. And instead of taking public institutions and trying to run corporatization, may still fall into the same trap over and over again. So what I'm saying is, why don't we think of setting up smaller companies, private, completely private, smaller institutions that are going to run without the trap of tenure, without the trap of chief executives, and see how we can develop these small companies and see them grow and expand and even merge in future. That's just my little contribution. Thank you.
That is a good contribution. Thank you so much. Do
Thank
we
you.
have other hands up? No. Okay. Oga Mark, have we lost you?
No, I'm inside.
Okay, so we're waiting for your input.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I know that we're going to have so many beautiful ideas coming up, and it has always been like this for a long time. This sector does not lack people who knows what we need to do and all that. And with my little experience in the sector, we've also had different wonderful reports, you know, that talks about the way forward and all that. And they've always been beautifully written. And I would still probably want to just stick to that aspect of, now when we get to implementation, the issue of interest comes up. Now, the interests of the governor, the interest of the commissioner, the interest of the GM. Sometimes our template says our governance structure, we must have a board. We call it professional board. So you bring in people with interest. Someone said, if it's a professional board, it's going to work. And one top politician told me that the governor has so many qualified people that he's even looking for a way to compensate. So if it comes to qualification, forget about it. We have a list of it. Now, the interest of the management of the water corporation, the interest of the operational staff, and all these things are very, very strong interests. Now you think there's some few governors who have released money into the system, but they didn't get anything. Some of those monies got stocked in the ministry. Some of those monies got into the water utilities and it got stocked. Some utilities had infrastructure built for them. Some utilities get some money from the government pays their salary and gives them some money for input. But when it comes to translating this to revenue, you discover that there's always a missing link. And then there's always a lot of interest, interplay, even GMs that work at cross purposes with the interest of the organization. I have worked with a GM somewhere that bastardized the network just because he wanted to get long supply to one preferred customer. And that taught a lot of things. So I'm still looking at, now that we have laws, now that we have money coming in and all that, how do we make sure that this individual private interest does not hurt the overall interest? How do you tie the board, the tenure of a board, tie it to the performance of the institution, tie the tenure of a general manager to the performance, to real performance of the institution? We need to begin to bring penalties and, of course, incentives, because the truth to be told, the people who drive service delivery, their pay is nothing. Their pay is meager. Their pay is miserable. I emerge from that system and I know it. And it means that we need to be able to convince them that if you give it your best shot, there is reward for you. We have to be down to earth about these issues. If not, we're going to have interplay of individual interest, and at the end of the day, the water will not run in the taps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. We have talked at length. We have come to that point. We got 10 minutes in order to close. I think that we're all in agreement that the thing is not going as we would like it to go. And we're also all in agreement that there is the need for the reforms and to follow what is the internationally accepted process. And corporatization is one of those. We can also clearly see that in order for the reforms to take hold, according to Engineer Benson, that we need to go the extra mile by being able to advocate to the governor and the state politicians to get them on the table and hold their feet to the fire. And there was also talk about involving the civil society groups a little more. And we talked a lot about the capacity of the heads of the state water agencies. And we also talked about the need to account for revenue or for money that is coming in, however it is coming in order for this to move forward. There's a whole lot more that we have said. The session was recorded. So what we're going to do is edit them and then share the link for the recording. So you can also share it to people who are higher up than where you are. If you are in a state water agency, somebody made the suggestion that we want to make sure that people who are higher than us can hear the kind of discussions that we've had now. So if we share the link to these discussions, you can pass the link on to anyone that you think could use the information. What we are also going to do is to try and hold another session on how we can impact the political will. I like that Engineer Benson has a lot of experience in this. And, I've done some work in that area also. So for subsequent, we're going to come up with a date. I'm also thinking that perhaps there needs to be a day when we have only the state water agencies present, the heads of the state water agencies present, so that they can learn from each other and learn from professionals on how to conduct themselves with the government and how to move things along. On that note, I am going to turn it over. Do we have a hand up? If we have a hand up, you better let me know.
Yes, we have 3 hands up.
Oh, okay. Let's take those and then we can turn it over to Engineer Benson to tell us the final words. Okay, who's going next?
Hello.
Yes, sir.
My name is Aniazoba Aloysius from Anambra State Urban Water Asset Holding Corporation.
Okay, sir.
Please, hello.
Yes, sir, we are hearing you.
Okay, I want to appreciate everybody for the contribution. I've been listening to all the conversation. And I want to appreciate the conveners. I want to also appreciate Engineer Benson for his contribution. I really learned a lot. In my own contribution, I don't know. For me, what I am thinking about the whole thing is if the government at all levels would take water as a business, when we are talking about economy, and we are looking for money or we are funding water projects, or when the politicians are making their campaigns, they'll be promising the electorate they will give them water, and before you know it, they go to school, sink borehole, go to church, sink borehole, All these things is not helping matters. But when you have a centralized water, whether it's in form of corporation or a PPP or whatever, but those places or those organizations that are in charge of circulating water, giving the water across board in the whole state or in the urban centers, then if you now fund that agency or that corporation, they will make a return because it's a business. When you fund a project or when you fund water scheme just to give people water, they're taking the water as a social goods. But we all know that it's an economic good. If we stop buying water now, like all these social stores, a lot of people are making money there. And we have a law, the law, if we are not following anything in the law. So I want to know, I don't know if I'm God, I will just touch the heart of all these politicians so that they think in once and the direction towards this, towards where this thing should be resolved will be assured. So I don't know. That is my own contribution. I want the government, if only, okay, when we are still having some of the projects in the Third National Urban Water Sector Reform Project in Anambra State. I remember when we came for a meeting at Abuja, almost every state were making requests for the coordinators to please come to their aid, maybe come down to their state and talk to their state governors so that they can be able to pay their counterpart fund. You see, some of them doesn't even understand that payment of this counterpart fund is beneficial to the state. So the language they will understand. I don't know who else would tell them for them to understand. Sometimes in many states, you cannot even have the opportunity to go and air your view or to say what will be beneficial to the state. So we really need help in states. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we still got Eugene. Eugene, you want to go next? Eugene, can you hear me? That's not working. Okay. Well, Eugene, we can't reach Eugene. I think, is this a good place to end?
Let me talk. Sorry.
Hello?
Hello? Yes, sir.
That's Eugene.
Oh, okay, Eugene, we're here.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity again. I just want to add that from every information we've just received and then the input from different speakers, it's obvious that the challenge we have within the sector is on the political platform, that is the politicians at the state levels. Now, is it possible for a platform such as this to really articulate on, like Engineer Benson did mention earlier, that we need to formulate certain presentation or documents which we can give them. Like I said earlier, 2022 is around the corner. Politicians are going to be, the whistle will soon be blown for campaigns to start. Are we going to be prepared, or what platform can we use as stakeholders to prepare certain form of working documents we can give the main political parties or all the political parties, see how we can drive it into them, and then they now incorporate this change in pattern. I did mention, not that, oh, we're going to give you water. Is there any way we can do that? So that's just what I'm trying to ask. If we can come together, bring up a more concerted document which can work with. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great suggestion, and I think this is something that we can do. And we can end on that note. Do we still have Engineer Benson here? Oga, you still there? No. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Are you hearing?
Yes.
So I'm Bashir Ibrahim.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Calling from KB State Water Board, Director Commercial.
Okay.
In addition to the interventions issues, if we can still make the document available as well as inviting these chief executive to this kind of programs, like like executive governor, commissioner, and others, so that to attend this and present this our issues to them through you, maybe they may be acceptable. It's one of the majors that will be male acceptable. So that's what I will add to my previous comments. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for attending. We've already gone over time. If we could, if you have not submitted your contact information, please do so we can email you presentations and email you, especially the recording of this session, so you can share with people who are higher up, and also so we can notify you about upcoming, we're doing this almost every week, so that whatever is coming up next week, you'll get notifications about it. And if you have contributions to make, feel free to give it to us. And we are sharing ideas about how to move the sector forward. And I do seriously appreciate people taking up 2 hours in the middle of the week to be a part of this. I thank you so much for being here. You're going to be hearing from us very, very soon. Again, my name is Vicky Idoko Pope. I am the head of VIPCG and also the main anchor of the WASH Academia. And we hope to see each other again next week. And I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yes.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you from all of us. Uh-huh.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you so much for attending.